Okay, it's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of Monday, June 19, 2023. And with that, would the clerk please call roll?
Scott.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Donna. Here. Mark.
Excused.
Jeff. Here. Bob.
Here.
David.
Here. And with that, we have 6 people here on the DOS, and we have 1 person that's absent for this meeting, but excused. And with that, we'll have the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, I have the meeting minutes for June 5th, 2023. And does anybody have any changes to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, let's do a voice, just a voice call. Everybody in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, hearing that everybody in favor, those minutes are approved. I'll move on to amendments to tonight's agenda. Does anybody have any amendments to tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, the amendment will stand as is. Tonight, there are no public hearings. There are no bid awards. And so that leads us on to persons to be heard on items related to tonight's agenda. To the clerk, does anybody on the line for items related to tonight's agenda?
Well, not that I have been told ahead of time. If someone raises their hand, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move to the audience here. Anybody has items related to tonight's agenda, please step forward, state your name, and you've got 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good evening. I'm Phil Hofstetter, CEO of Peterborough Medical Center. And I'm here tonight in support of Ordinance 2023-11. As you know, this ordinance aims to rezone for public use the proposed location of the new building for Peterborough Medical Center. And while I typically reserve my comments for my monthly report to the Assembly, I felt it necessary to address concerns that arose during last week's Planning Commission meeting. During that meeting, PMC board members, project teams, staff, and I attended to clarify details about our replat and rezone proposal under the guidelines of the commission. And to my surprise, the vote on rezoning resulted in a tie, and our replatting application was subsequently rejected. What concerned me was that this decision appeared to come without the finding of facts under the commission's plat key criteria under 1812-020. There seemed to be a departure from these requirements, and instead the focus shifted towards questioning the decisions made by our community hospital's publicly elected governing body and the Borough Assembly, both of which had dedicated significant effort towards the project. The application for rezone and replat was the culmination of many years of work that led to the approval of Borough Resolution 2023-04, which dedicates borough land for the new facility. This has been a painstakingly process selected from 5 potential sites over the past 7 years. The result of numerous assembly meetings, PMC board meetings, public forums, and work sessions. These were all made available to the public, and the content is available publicly on our website. I strongly urge support for the rezoning and replat of this site. This step is crucial for the future of healthcare in Petersburg. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Hofstetter? Okay, thank you.
I just have one comment.
Go ahead.
Will Phil be available to answer any questions later on this evening? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments related to tonight's agenda?
Hi, I'm Mary Clemens. I live at 804 Fram Street, which is adjacent to the proposed rezoning area. And first, I'd like to state that I am in favor of a new hospital at a new site. And I am becoming convinced that this is the best site for it. I know it's been a long process for the medical staff and the project leaders to vet the various options. I have attended the open house that was at the Holy Cross House last month, I believe it was. And there were a lot of people in and out, a lot of people there to answer questions, hear my concerns. I was very pleased that they were listening to my concerns, and they seemed to be very willing to work with me as a property owner of how to screen the effects or mitigate the effects from the hospital from my house. And so I was very pleased, and I do believe that there's been quite a public process going through this. I went to the Planning Commission meeting last week. A few of us spoke, and some for, some against, but you know, that's the way it is. So again, I would just like to say that I am in favor of this site. I'm in favor of the rezoning. I believe that there's been a lot of work put into it, and effects to the neighboring property owners can be mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you. If no questions for Member Clemens. I'll move on. Anybody else to talk on items related to the agenda?
Hello, I'm Marlene Cushing. I'm on the PMC board, but I'm speaking for myself. Thank you for the opportunity to address the assembly. And I'm speaking in support of the rezoning of the land near Mountain View Manor for public use so that PMC can proceed with planning to build a new facility there. This area was determined to be the most feasible and the most cost-effective for a new hospital facility. The choice was made from several sites that were given to the PMC board by the borough staff for this purpose. I understand that this will impact the people living nearby, and I really hope that everything possible is done both visually and with traffic patterns to make this as least burdensome as possible for those living right next to it. There are certainly those in the community that want more information and want to have their opinions heard on a new facility. I urge them to talk to members of the PMC board, to talk to Phil, to participate in the open houses, and to look for information on the websites. We've tried different ways to communicate, and I would appreciate suggestions from the people who feel like they have not been heard on how we can communicate better and improve this process. Even with plenty of information, I certainly realize there are still going to be people who oppose this. I've lived in Petersburg for 45 years, and I can recall very strong opinions against the new post office, the community gym, the pool, the library, the fire hall. I'm sure we can all list a few more, regardless of the source of funding for these various things. The cost of this project is scary, and we are all admitting that we cannot afford it as a community without outside funding, and that is certainly our goal. My concern is that if we don't continue down this path to build a new facility, we may not have the healthcare services we have now in 2 years or 5 years or at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else that would like to make a presentation? Come forward, please. Make your, state your name and who you represent, please.
Joel Renner here representing myself, and I mean, I can't follow the last speaker very well. She did a very fine job summing everything up. I just want to say I do support this, and we'll see it move forward. It doesn't take much looking around the existing facility to realize that, you know, we need to go forward with something. So opposing it, the opposers can come up with a better idea, and we can move forward with that as well. But we do need to do something, and this is a good step. So just voice my support for it, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to make a presentation?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Briner, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, even though I am an employee of Petersburg Medical Center and I am a member of the new facility steering committee. I attended the recent planning commission meeting and was just disappointed in both the outcome, obviously, and the process of the resolutions to rezone and replat the area of the proposed medical center. I was hoping for both propositions to pass, as I have been working on this project for many, many years, back when we recognized the need for a new facility and strategized with a small planning group called the PMC Long-Term Planning Committee. Mayor Jensen's not here, but he sat on that committee with us, and it was 8-9 years ago, and we had decided that we wanted to present to the PMC board that we needed a new facility. So it's been going on a long time. I was most frustrated that so many of the commissioners felt that they didn't have the information about why we needed a new hospital, why we selected the lot that was proposed, and felt that the public had not been informed. And I will very freely admit that I'm probably not as informed about all of the current projects in Petersburg as that I could be. And I could be a better citizen by expanding my view and knowledge of many of the issues of this community. However, I think I would have had to have worked pretty hard to ignore all of the information that we've seen about the new facility over the last several years in the paper, in the newspaper, or on the paper and the radio, the assembly meetings, work sessions, PMC board meetings, the town hall meetings back before even the pandemic, and the recent open house. I hope, as Marlene said, that people who are in decision-making in positions arm themselves with information and attend these meetings and learn about the process. I was really surprised that a committee who pretty casually voted down a big project didn't have the information they needed to make a good decision. So I thank you for doing your work and taking action on at least one of those issues tonight. This is a truly amazing community, and we can do amazing things when we work together. So I know that we have a good future in store for us, and we need to provide the healthcare for this community so we can grow and thrive and have healthy citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with comments on items related to tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move on to items unrelated to tonight's agenda. Does anybody have comments unrelated to tonight's agenda? Come forward, please, and state your name if you please.
Hi, my name is Becky Knight. And just for clarification, earlier you said it was a 3-minute limit. Did you mean 5? Okay,
Go for it.
good. Hello, Vice Mayor Lynn and Assembly members. Senator Murkowski recently reintroduced the so-called landless legislation, or S-1889. I request that you again formally oppose the bill. It is nearly identical to other numerous failed versions. My following comments are only the tip of the iceberg. The bill would amend ANGSA to provide the communities of Haines, Teneke, Petersburg, Wrangell, and Ketchikan the right to form Alaska Native urban corporations and receive one township or 23,040 acres each from Tongass federal land. If approved, it would upend ANGSA and add to the ever-growing patchwork of private and industrialized landscapes across Southeast Alaska. As I have previously expressed before the Assembly, I greatly respect Alaska Native peoples and their deep cultural ties to the lands of Southeast Alaska. For much of my adult life, I have worked to protect those lands from industrialization, thereby enabling those ties to endure. The bill has a decades-long failed legislative history. In fact, only 11 months ago, Senator Murkowski, during a Senate Energy meeting, was forced to withdraw the legislation due to a lack of votes to advance it any further. Teneke and Petersburg opposed the last bill. That's 40% of the affected communities. Teneke strongly opposes this latest version. I request that the Petersburg Assembly again go on record early on in opposition, allowing for full daylight on the bill's impacts. This reintroduction comes when Alaskans enter the height of their work season. There were no congressional field hearings for the previous bill, only a quick blow-through last summer by staffers, and included only a small non-representative cadre of invitation-only public elected officials. No in-person public hearings were conducted, and the public only learned of the staff visit after they had departed. The public deserves better this go-round. S 1889 would transfer massive taxpayer-funded public infrastructure to the urban corporations, including, quote, all roads, trails, log transfer facilities, leases, etc. For Petersburg, this includes 12 federal parcels around North Kupreanof, Portage Bay, the Point Agassiz Peninsula, Keene Channel, Bear, and Twin Creeks on Mitkoff Island. Also included are major portions of the recently upgraded and extended $40 million state-funded road from Cake to 12 Mile Creek. The proposed transfer of millions of dollars of public infrastructure should undergo a CBO cost estimate before taking any further action on the bill. This should include the lost monetary opportunities when private for-profit corporations have a near monopoly on major marine access facilities in Southeast Alaska. ANCSA explicitly resolved equity and compensation for the 5 communities in Southeast Alaska and other similarly ineligible communities in the rest of Alaska. The Sea Alaska shareholders in the 5 communities who are seeking the bill are already compensated for being ineligible to form their own ANCSA corporations. They were enrolled as at-large shareholders of Sea Alaska, enjoy surface and subsurface land rights, and receive benefits that shareholders with village status do not. For instance, the 2023 Sea Alaska Spring shareholder distribution for urban at-large shareholders was $2,112 versus $3 versus $336 for village shareholders. Clearly, the equities already tip in favor of these at-large Sea Alaska shareholders who seek the bill. They are the shareholders who Senator Murkowski claims are treated inequitably. Since the enactment of ANCSA, no governmental or other authoritative entity has determined that the 5 communities should have been deemed eligible in ANCSA. In fact, the one funded study by Congress funded by Congress by the University of Alaska's Institute of Social and Economic Research, or ICER, strongly reacted to ongoing misinterpretations of their study to KFSK radio. Quote, we did not, as you reported, make a finding that Congress had inadvertently omitted the study villages from land benefits, nor did we recommend that Congress should now award them land. We did not, as you imply, say the village studies were entitled to the same economic benefits as Southeast communities for which village or urban corporations have received. In short, federal public lands should remain in federal public hands. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the assembly at this point? Thank you. Anybody else that have comments unrelated to tonight's agenda?
Hi, Joel Randup again, speaking for myself. And it's just like to give support for moving forward with the Papke's landing project of some sort. Me and my family use this site to launch our skiff probably almost every weekend in the summer months and spring, and every other weekend or so during the rest of the year. And so I do see a lot of what goes on out there, and whether or not, what other kind of structure becomes of that, I mean, we can decide that. I do think it's probably time to move forward, and my opinion, try and have more public input and try and decide how we're going to pay for it, maintain it. But there's definitely a need for that. I just wanted to show support for that, and hope you guys can move forward with that of some sort. So thank you.
Thank you for testimony. Anybody that's on the Zoom or?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience on items unrelated to tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on here. Tonight, there are no boards, commissions, or committee reports. There's nothing on the consent agenda. Under report of when there's no reports of other officers And there is a mayor's report with one item on it, which I will read. It has to do with the Petersburg Housing Survey. The Borough Assembly and Housing Task Force are requesting Petersburg residents fill out a survey to determine current and future housing needs for Petersburg. The survey is easy to complete online with a link to the survey located on the Borough News tab on the Borough website, www.petersburgak.gov. You can also take the survey on your phone using the QR code or the attached survey flyer. Flyers are also posted around town. Paper surveys are available at the front desk of the municipal building or the public library. Somebody today was telling me that they took it and it takes about 10 minutes. If you've got 10 minutes to spare, please take the survey. And with that, I'll move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, sir. C. Western was in Petersburg doing maintenance on the fire department's air packs and the compressor at the fire hall. We're currently putting together a materials list for the Rasmussen Bridge deck replacement, which is tentatively scheduled for late summer. We're still looking for a motor pool mechanic to replace Joe Poling, who took a job with Power and Light. We have not had any applications to date. Borough's free household hazardous waste collection event will be held on June 24th and 25th. Details will be posted in the Petersburg Pilot and on the borough's website and on social media. Mike Bell wrapped up the Cabin Creek and City Creek Dam safety inspections with our consultant in the state dam safety program recently. Both structures are safe and operating as intended. Pump Station 4 wetlands permit applications have been issued to the Corps of Engineers. Public Works is assisting the wastewater department with a test pit evacuation later in the month to assess the underground conditions and groundwater at the new wet well site. Power and Light will be removing a service pole prior to the test dig. Other than a slight hiccup with the generator's cooling system on the first day of the annual SEPA shutdown and diesel run went well. New operators were able to get a firsthand look at the process and gain some valuable knowledge. Power plant. Thanks to all the operators for their work to keep the lights on during the SEPA shutdown and to the line crew for picking up any slack while the rest of the crew was busy running the diesel plant. SEPA made some great progress with their maintenance work and was able to cut 2 days from the planned 10-day outage. This early finish equated to approximately $56,000 in saved fuel costs for the borough and Power and Light. Staff shut down the hydro and penstock on June 12th. We successfully isolated the Blind Slough substation on June 13th, and the contractor started working on demolition in the powerhouse. Hatcheries feeding their processes via the pumps in the emergency storage pond. The library's summer reading programs are in full swing. Over 225 kids, teens, and adults are participating. Thank you to the many businesses, organizations, and individuals that generously donate and make these programs possible. Sign up at psglib.org. DNR recorded a patent deed granting ownership of 589.85 acres within the Thomas Bay subdivision to the Petersburg Borough. DNR retains ownership of the rights of way within the subdivision, but the borough has management authority. This is the first conveyance of municipal entitlements land completed. Carl and I attended a Zoom meeting with Senator Murkowski and representatives from several Southeast communities regarding the 301H waiver to the discharge, wastewater discharge. This will be a very expensive project if we don't get state or federal assistance. Total price tag, if we have to do secondary treatment, is in the neighborhood of 47 million, not counting operations and ongoing expenses. So after over a month of discussions, the borough decided to change healthcare providers, moving from Primera to Moda Health. This will save the borough and borough employees a significant amount on their healthcare costs. Tourship activity is steady and regular, with the larger vessels using the drive down 3 to 4 times a week and lightering into the South Harbor loading zone. A big thank you to our local fleet who are playing nicely. Practice of reserving space on the inside has been common, and staff appreciates the communication between skippers, staff, and other users. Water line on Seafoot was down last week after a boat tagged it and cracked the main line. Harbor had backup parts and worked with a diver and got it back up and running. Backflow preventers are being inspected in the harbor. Also, we had our crane inspector in town, and both cranes passed with some minor maintenance. Launch permits are available at the harbor office. Harbor parking is being enforced along Harbor Way and harbor parking lots, and a big reminder to boaters of the no-wake zone outside all three harbors. OSHA tour at assisted living went well. We will know more when we get their write-up. We are also working on the Alaska Housing pre-tour inspection for assisted living. Preliminary steps have been taken to assess the structural condition of the elderly housing main entrance, which after 40 years is starting to show some signs of deterioration. Parks and Rec finished another successful annual cleaning and maintenance closure, focusing on repainting the leisure pool, repairing in-pool lighting, cleaning and scrubbing the pool deck. Both pools and their filters were changed, repairing and regrouting tile work, waxing the pool slide, the air intake vents, painting and rearranging weight and cardio rooms, cleaning all rooms and equipment, installing some new equipment, and repainting the mezzanine stairs and other small details around the facility. We had our Juneau contractors come to town during the closure to replace the boiler panels, install 3 pumps, and install new expansion tank, all in the boiler room. The last item to take care of this repair project is reinsulating the pipes. This is all stuff from the fire several years ago. Swim lessons will be taught in upcoming weeks, including adult swim lessons. Please talk to Parks and Rec for more information. Parks and Rec Advisory Board will be hosting a meeting on Wednesday, June 21st at 4 p.m. at the Community Center. Corvus Design in Juneau visited Sandy Beach last week to help the Hootley signage group with location selection for 4 interpretive signs highlighting Tlingit presence in the area. Please contact Stephanie Payne at Parks and Rec or contact the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for more information. The Aquatic Center family locker room is experiencing some sewer line issues. These are different than the other ones. Please be patient as we work through those issues in the upcoming weeks. The family locker room will remain closed during this time. And Friends of the Bike Park will be hosting another work party on Sunday, June 25th from 10 to 4. Please contact Stephanie Payne or Pat Blair or meet us at Shelter 2 to join in the fun. And that's it, unless there's questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the assembly? Okay. Member Marsh, I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. Through the Vice Mayor, Mr. Geestreck, would you go over the 301H waiver with the wastewater issue, please?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Through the mayor. 301H waiver is a wastewater related waiver from EPA that allows the borough to discharge treated wastewater out into Frederick Sound. We've got a pipe that goes a ways out and then it goes into what's called a mixing zone. So that allows any adverse effects to be spread out with the natural tide system and keeps it safe. It's been that way for pretty much almost as long as Petersburg's been here. Several years ago, we got notified by the state of Alaska that they weren't necessarily going to approve our 301H that's done every 5 years. It has to be renewed, that they were not going to renew that. We talked to EPA. EPA says they have no problem renewing it. The state, on the other hand, says it is EPA's fault. So we're a little bit, some finger pointing going on. That's been going on for a while. The challenge is what they're asking for. There are 9 communities in Alaska, including Anchorage, and all the rest, the majority of them are here in Southeast. So Wrangell, Sitka, Ketchikan, Petersburg, Haines, Skagway. Anyway, you get the idea. As an example, what they're asking for is either disinfectant treatment, which would be treating all wastewater with something like chlorine or potentially UV, or secondary treatment, which is a bacterial process where you have to add bacteria to your wastewater stream, hold it for a while, the bacteria breaks things down. We really don't have a great answer yet on which one we have to do. Disinfectant is the cheapest of the two, at about 10 million for Petersburg. That's basically, what we're hearing. Secondary treatment would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 37 million, all in wastewater to redo the plant to add secondary treatment. We'd also have to add likely 6 to 7 employees because it has to be manned 24/7 to keep the measurements and make your bacteria don't die, which would get really expensive as well. So this meeting, We had some folks from DEC there, kind of back and forth a little bit with the same issue with the state saying that DEC is, or that EPA is responsible. Those of us in the room who have talked to EPA get a different story, which is that it's the state's interpretation. And then in fact, no, we don't have to do it, that they're willing to reissue the 301H waiver. This is going to keep going at it. I would say the conversation that we had today was primarily around acceptance that it's going to happen, and that how do we fund it becomes the big question. Not to say that no one's going to quit fighting, but the senator is the one in the room that holds the most clout, and that was kind of where she was coming from. So it's a big deal. Anchorage's cost estimates somewhere in the $2 billion range to fix their plant. But it's feels political because they're saying Anchorage doesn't have to start on it right away. So Haynes, Wrangell is the first two. Skagway and Petersburg comes a little bit after that. So Carl and I are going to talk it over and see if we heard the same things and figure out what our next steps are. Senator has asked for some information from us, and to the other communities as well. Sitka was going to try to set up a similar meeting, but this time have EPA in the room, so the two DEC and EPA can't point fingers at each other. So we'll probably go down that road as well. Again, because we hear something different from EPA than what we're hearing from the state. Again, big deal. Wastewater rates would have to go up, I don't know, 10 times what they are now. I mean, that's just a very rough guess, probably maybe more than that. Anyway, that's a 301H waiver. Sorry for a lot more information than you probably wanted, but.
Any more questions? Okay, Member Fine-Wash?
Yeah, that was pretty much what I pretty much covered it. I mean, I was just gonna ask if Senator Murkowski gave any insight into like potential solutions, or in terms of funding, or maybe reinterpreting the rules, or were they mostly just there to hear what we had to say?
Through the mayor, yeah, that was a lot of the conversation. Was what are different ways to interpret this? And to give to her credit, she had some staff on there that questioned DEC pretty well, and brought up some of the same issues. I stepped in and kind of, I wanted to know why they decided to not force Anchorage to do it. It didn't make any sense. Anchorage's outflow is more than all of the other communities combined. Yet Anchorage is kind of getting a well, we'll deal with it later approach. Sounds political. Anchorage's got a lot more votes than Southeast does. So if they forced it on Anchorage and forced Anchorage to spend $2 billion, maybe that's a reason for it. It's not what DEC said, so we'll take them at their word for now. But it's a huge deal. This has been going on forever, and to suddenly now say we've got to come up with, and we're just one community, 47 million if we had to do secondary treatment. That's a lot of money to do in a hurry. So a lot of questions about timing, and could this be extended? If we just do disinfectant, is there any promises from everybody that that's as far as we have to go? One of the challenges with that is you got a huge, big operational plant that works together. If you just do disinfectant and have to come back and do secondary treatment later, now you got to redesign the plant again versus doing it all up front. So it's really important to understand, what do we have to do? What if we're going to be forced to do it, which part of this do we have to do all of it, or can we get away with just disinfectant? Anyway, I think this is going to be a conversation that's going to happen for quite a while.
Other questions from the assembly? I have two for you that I was asked today. One of them is, where are we at in the process with the API safety review?
Debbie, you'd have to answer that. I'm sorry.
They are coming to town soon. I believe it is July 13th.
And after that, then the other part of that question is, when can we expect a report? August, September?
Well, I believe that they said within 60 days. So they're already gathering information that we can send them via email. And then they will be here in town as well. So I think that their report will be written pretty quickly when they're done with that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
The other question that I was asked today related to the decision that the Assembly made last week on adding the position to support Carl, the assistant. Where, do we have it on the streets? Where are we at with that process?
No, do not have it on the streets yet. In fact, it may be several weeks before we get to that point. We were in the middle of union negotiations and also changing over our healthcare, and we just didn't have the time. So it's going to involve writing a nice ad and deciding where to put it. And that's going to take probably another at least a couple of weeks before we have it on the street.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll move on here. We have the no unfinished business tonight. We have under new business, we have 2 items. And the first item under new business is ordinance 2023-11. An ordinance amending the official zoning map for Service Area 1 of the Petersburg Borough to rezone portions of the Airport Addition subdivision and 13th Street relocation subdivision to public use. If approved in 3 readings, ordinance 2023-11 will rezone portions of the Airport Addition and 13th Street relocation subdivisions from single-family residential, commercial 1, multifamily residential, and open space recreation to public use in preparation for proposed future construction of a new medical center. Planning Commission recommends the subject property not be rezoned due to lack of public education on the issue, lack of public input on the pros and cons of the rezone, and lack and loss of single-family and multifamily residential lots. Do I have a motion to consider this?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by member Mucci, I believe, and seconded by member Kensinger. Comments, questions, Assembly? Okay, Member Marsh.
Thank you. I am not in favor of this. Just from the outset, I think this medical center design and layout is a grand and beautiful facility, but I frankly do not see how we can afford it. Not in the near future, not in the long-term future. Medicaid, Medicare funding are not entirely reliable sources. They've been in place for decades, but I don't think we can build such a facility thinking that those funds will continue to come through, even if we can't get this funding stack that we need from the outset. So the land being rezoned itself, I think it gobbles up a lot of residential areas, as the Planning Commission noted here. So I will not be in favor of this one.
Thank you, Member Marsh. With that, if we could we have the manager or Liz just talk about what, for tonight, what the Assembly is being asked to do, if we could, please.
Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Through the Vice Mayor. So the question before you is to look at a large parcel of land and consider rezoning it to make it suitable for the use of a large development. The public use is the zoning category that we use for government buildings or public purposes. And so public use would be a suitable zoning classification for a future medical center. This would be consistent with what the Assembly has approved in the past in their resolution to set aside this property for that future development.
Thank you. Any questions of Liz? Okay, Member Kensinger.
Yeah, several questions. I did spend 5 years on planning and zoning, so I'm somewhat familiar with the process. And to me, it seems like what this ordinance is asking us to do tonight is to change the zoning classification for this parcel. It's not asking us to decide whether we want to build a hospital or not. And so my question to planning and zoning is that I don't feel they're responsive to their request to rezone this parcel. They had 3 statements of facts. 2 of them was a lack of information. I understand it's hard to stay informed on everything. But if you're a commissioner, if you're an assembly member, it's your obligation, if you're looking at a subject, to have some idea about what you're talking about before you vote for it. It's just what we are elected to do. And the only one that was remotely relevant was the platting of the lots, of taking out a number of single family and residential lots. And if you look on a map, Petersburg has more lots platted right now than we have people living in lots. We have like, I don't know, and I'll ask Liz to confirm this. My last count was, I counted 300 lots that are already, that we have zoned right now. Is that consistent with your figures, or do you think it's more? I haven't gotten done counting. I could maybe by the next meeting give you an accurate count, but.
Through the vice mayor, I haven't finished counting either, but I took a quick look, close to 140 lots, zoned just single family residential. So that doesn't include rural residential or single family mobile home or other residential categories that we have. So it would actually be much higher for just residential. And then we have a couple of large parcels that aren't subdivided yet, in the neighborhood of 20 acres that are also zoned single family residential. And then just looking between maybe the cemetery and town, around town, there's probably around 60 lots that are zoned residential that are on a road, that are either owned by the borough or privately owned, that are not developed.
If I could follow up. So I know right now we're doing a housing needs assessment, but could you give us a reason why you think that, why we would need to have, what do you see us taking these lots? Oh, that's not a fair question to ask you, Liz. That's more of a political question. I apologize. Okay, so I'll say it. The problem we have in Petersburg is not a lack of land. If you go to someplace like Sitka, they can't figure out where to shoehorn in a couple houses, let alone a large facility. I mean, we're blessed here with thousands of acres that the borough owns outright. Well, maybe not outright, but we're in the process of getting a lot more from the state. So the problem isn't a lack of land. So if I thought that the land that was going to be where the hospital was going to be at was going to take the core of land that was available for development, which is what we're talking about here for single family lots, commercial lots, and multifamily lots, then that could be a problem. But the Planning and Zoning Commission, if we have a need or if we have a request, if somebody comes to the Assembly or the Planning Commission and identifies a parcel of borough property that they think they can develop, and all they need to do is come to us, approach us, and we would more than gladly try and look at changing the zoning on it and doing whatever we can to make it happen. So it's not a lack of land that we're dealing with here. So I'm going to be supporting this ordinance because we're not talking about, we've already voted on as a community, as an assembly, not once, but twice, at least since I've been here, that we're supporting the construction of this hospital. It's been through the hospital board, another duly elected board, and the assembly, another duly elected board. And so I think we just need to move on. And I encourage the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission to reach out to Phil and anybody here on the assembly if they feel a need for any more information on this. You know, and I agree with Donna. At first, when I heard that we were the price tag of the hospital, I didn't see how it could possibly happen. And then I went through the effort and sat down with Phil, and he explained to me and laid out in pretty clear language how it could happen. And I understand there's a long road ahead, but I have confidence that we can pull this off. So I'm going to be supporting this ordinance.
Thank you. Other comment, Member Mucci?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I happened to be at that planning and zoning meeting last week, and you know, I really appreciate the people who put themselves in on the planning commission or ran for office. But you know, some of the conversations that went on kind of took a left turn during the conversation that when they were trying to deliberate on what they were going to do. One member wanted to go back and look at all the 5 sites again and start that process over. Somebody wanted to have it go to a vote of the public. Several people hadn't really been following the whole process, and I'll say one thing about Phil and the hospital board is they do their job about getting information out. I don't think just to the assembly, but the open houses, the community cafes, the open house they had at the Holy Cross House about a month ago, were well attended. I mean, I think there's plenty of avenues for getting information about where we are in this process. And like the document we have in our packet talks about the resolution that we passed in April about the assembly dedicating property to the hospital board for this new facility. We were just asking the Planning and Zoning Commission to kind of do this task for us, but obviously they needed some more information, and I'm sure that if they come forward, they'll be able to get that info from the hospital board and from Phil. So yeah, I just like to see this move forward, and I'll be voting in favor of this evening.
Thank you. Other comments? Member Feinwald?
Thank you. I think it's just worth noting, you know, the lack of available single-family, multifamily residential land in Petersburg won't really matter if we don't have a functional medical facility, because it's going to, you know, render this a place that's not very desirable to live. So I think it's really important we keep that in perspective. Like, you know, granted, yeah, we are sacrificing some land that we could develop into neighborhoods to build this hospital, but we've gone to a lot of work to determine, you know, what the cheapest, but also the, you know, the best location for the hospital is. And this is just kind of where it landed. There was, like, as everyone said, a tremendous number of meetings and info sessions that kind of led to that decision on the part of a bunch of different groups here in town. So I think that's worth considering or remembering. Thank you.
Other comments from the assembly?
I'll comment.
Newman?
I view the rationale of the planning commission as inadequate and insufficient to disregard the direction that the assembly has been moving on. Phil Hofstadter and the hospital board have been more than forthright with their information to the public. Want to hear the argument of the loss of revenue producing lots in the future. It would probably take decades for those lots to be developed. And then when you weigh that, the minimal tax, you know, revenue from those lots compared to the benefit to the public of a new hospital facility, I think it's far outshines it. So I agree with other assembly members' comments, and I will be voting in support of this.
Thank you. Last call. Any other comments? Okay, with that, would the clerk please call the roll on the rezoning of portions of the airport addition and 13th Street relocation subdivisions?
Thomas,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Donna?
No.
Okay, it passes on a 5-2 vote with member Marsh opposing. And with that, I'll move on to item B, resolution 2023-07. A resolution of temporary change assembly meeting dates from Monday to Thursday for July through September 2023. Mayor Jensen is participating in a summer fishery that is open each week, Sunday through Wednesday, and therefore is unable to remotely attend meetings held on Mondays during the months of July through September. Moving the meeting days from Monday to Thursday temporarily will allow Mayor Jensen to participate in assembly meetings. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So move.
Do I hear a second? Okay, not a second, that fails, and resolution, it's also then fails. With that, I'll move on to communications. I think there's communications in the packet and on the website since June 1, 2023. With that, I'll move to assembly discussion items. Does any member have a discussion item on this? Seeing none, assembly member comments. Again, it's awful quiet tonight here with this. With that, any recognitions? again, quiet. And with that, do I have,
Quick
okay,
recognition. I want to recognize
member Feinwalsh.
Parks and Recreation here for their work getting signs set up on Sandy Beach, as the mayor mentioned in his report. I think that's really cool. You know, we're seeing more and more tourists wandering around Petersburg, and I've always been really disappointed in the lack of signs. People don't know what they're looking at, and it's great to see people working to change that.
Good, thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.